Oh, yes. Welcome, everyone, to Herb Keener and his senior moment. I just had a senior moment. I'm standing there looking at the engineer, and I'm on the air. So, good. That's a good introduction for senior moment. Uh, Today we're going to talk about uh, the families and this Thanksgiving coming up tomorrow. This is the day before Thanksgiving, and uh, looking forward to having a calm day. My wife and I, we pretty much spend it on our own. We go to our pastor's house and hang out with him for a while, and then we just get back home to our two dogs and our two-Larry home. Uh, right now, I'd like to share with you some moments about these Thanksgivings. They're sometimes turn out to be a brawl, and other times they turn out to be a joyous times. Now, I have an idea on the families that turn into fistfights and trying to beat each other up and trying to do things. I have a theory on that. And I believe it's the point of not taking care of issues through the year, suppressing it until you get to a place with all your relatives around, and then whatever happens there, somebody says the wrong thing, it ignites the fuse, and that's when they blow up, and things get said, things get done, and next thing you know, you may get shot, you may get beat up. Anything could happen. I think in life, if we begin to understand that we need to keep a clear conscience with people, we need to take care of these issues so that the holidays can be a joyous time, not a terrible time. You don't want to be enjoying your Thanksgiving with police officers and half your family going to jail. So we need to start, especially the elderly people. We can't get in too much trouble because most people don't recognize us as even being alive, much less being part of something. So I think as we grow older in the 80s and 90s and whatever, we need to be the ones that set the standard in talking to our relatives through the year. And then, like I say, then when we come together, we don't come together to fight. We come together to enjoy one another's company. So with that said, I got a story about what I had done in my younger years is when my mother come to me and asked me to go to the elderly folks' home where my grandmother was and to see her. She was having Alzheimer's and dementia. And so my grandmother during the year, she wasn't a very good person to me. She prophesied to my mother I'd be in San Quentin time I was 18 years old. What she didn't know, I did go to San Quentin, but it was to do a ministry. So, but anyway, with that in the back of my mind, I told my mother, I said, no. I said, she wouldn't even know who I was anyway. I used that as an excuse. Now, when I turned about 70, I realized what I did was I used the judgment of the past to determine what not to do. Now, my mother wasn't asking really for me to go there and see my grandmother. She was asking me to be with her, who she loved her mother, just like I loved my mother. And I let that fly over my head. I should have went joyously with her and dealt with whatever it had to be dealt with, no matter what it caused me, because my grandmother didn't have anything to do with how much I loved my mother. But I used my dislike for my grandmother to turn my mother down at a time I should have been there for 100%. So you people that are in your younger age, you need to think twice before you answer when a loved one asks you to do something. Determine it on their value, not on what you're going to do's value. So today I just going to reminisce about what we need to do as elderly people. You know, I don't know how I ended up doing this, but somehow I figured we need to know that as we look back, we can see all those things that we have done in the past and wish we had a do-over, which is not possible. So as the elders of this country, you know, I was looking on the internet for stories about the welfare and how people were doing in the elderly age. Boy, they are getting ripped off. They are getting advertised at, bombarded with things. I mean, you can't believe. Yes, you need to put in old people into the computer, and it'll come up about all the things that they go against the elderly because they feel they're weak and not able to defend themselves. Man, I'm telling you, these crooks are going after the elderly like crazy, and some of them naturally are so lonesome they'll talk to anybody, so they end up being victim of a scam. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I started looking at some of the scams and even the regular advertisement where they act like there's a story value, ends up trying to sell them something. So I think for my part of it is that I believe there ought to be stricter laws protecting the elderly. I mean, I know there's all kinds of laws, but the way the law is structured today, even if they catch them, they slap their hands and turn them loose, and they go right back to doing what they were doing. So people need to look out for their loved ones. Look out for those that gave them birth and gave them life and took care of them as they was coming up. It's not time to forget. It's time to remember. It's not a time to say everything's okay and when it's not. So as an elderly person myself and dealing with a lot of things that I've dealt with, it's time that we started acknowledging that the elderly have a lot to offer. And for you that are elderly, quit looking for the expiration date and start looking at living life like you were going to live forever, but every day thinking it may be your last. That way you can have the fullness of the day and start planning for tomorrow. Because what do you have to lose? Absolutely nothing. What do you have to gain? Everything. You have life to gain. You get out, you see things, you do things, you can have a beautiful life. Because not everybody shuts down the elderly. There's a man that was in the news about he had a 92-year-old neighbor, and he was in his 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. And he heard a noise at his neighbor's house, so he went over to see if he's okay. Well, he run into a young man in the neighbor's backyard, and it turns out that he had threw a brick through the window trying to get in there and rob this 92-year-old man. And when he was talking to the neighbor, he was acting like he was there to help, and when the neighbor turned around, the guy stabbed him in the chest. And luckily, he recovered for it and all that. But this 92-year-old man probably would have been dead if it hadn't have been for that young man coming over there. So that's a man that stood up for his neighbor. And I watched the interview on the internet, and it was a powerful thing because the 92-year-old naturally was so glad that he come over. He's probably saved his life. And the man was apprehended, went to jail, and the young man, he began to heal. So this is what's going on. People are trying to attack our elderly because they're weak and can't fight back. They flee. Now, a lot of them do, but most of them can't. And this driver, 82 years old, driving down the road, I'm sure he probably cut off one of these little motorcycles, the ATV things, and dirt bikes going down the road. Well, they said about 40 of them stand around and threw rocks at his vehicle and got him off the side of the road, started punching him. He took off and turned into a neighborhood, and some of them chased him there and ended up tearing out his windshield, his back glass, and his side glass, and punching the 82-year-old. He finally got away and got out of his vehicle and just collapsed. You know, he's 82 years old. It's not even safe for him to drive down the road. So these are things that we need to be aware of. Now, these are just a few little things. Just think how many people are out there that no one knows what happened. These are one out of millions. So we need to start being aware. And I physically feel that if I was attacked, I could probably keep my distance and probably put some hurt on a guy that tried to attack me. But we're not all like that. Some of us have disabilities, and some of us are not able to defend ourselves. We need to start being aware of our surroundings. That's the key thing. Sunday in church, I met a man named Angel Mendoza. He was 98 years old. I was amazed. He had a little walker, but he got around good. He spoke good. And he's just looking forward to being 100. He's 98. He said 2 more years, I'm going to be 100. So he planned on living for 2 years. He's not talking about dying every minute. He's talking about living. So that's what we need to deal with. We need to deal with life. You know, and I have a powerful story I want to tell you about in the second segment. Right now, my thing is, let's just start being aware of who we are, who we're with, and what we're doing. And if we're with the wrong people, doing the wrong thing, we need to stop. Take a look. I don't care how old you are, change can come. That Jekyll and Hyde mentality can't get it. That's another thing I want to talk about in the second or maybe third segment of what we're doing. But, you know, life is life. If you don't live it, somebody else will live it for you. So get your slice of life. God bless. We're back. the first thing I want to do is I want to promote my book. If you haven't really read a good story of somebody that hit the bottom and come back, then you need to get this book. It's available on Amazon. It's available on herbkeener.com. You go there and you can order it right online. And right at this moment, I'm not charging anything to ship it, and it normally costs $2.75 to ship it. So right at this moment, you'll be able to save that. So you need to get this book, and if you have anybody that's youngsters or things in your family that are thinking about doing something that's not really legal, or if they're hanging around with somebody that is just not to your liking, you need to take a look at this book and see how I made all those bad decisions, done all those things. I talked to the wrong people, dealt with the wrong people, and got greedy looking for money. And I mean, it absolutely, the name of it is Decision to Die, Strength to Live. And there's a reason for that title, because I was going to die. I mean, literally going to die in 1984, but I was spared. So then I had the strength to live. That was 37 years ago. But the main thing is, I'm alive now, and whatever I do now is going to hopefully determine my legacy in life. I haven't really done a lot in life, but it's not over. I'm only 81. And I've got a story here that's coming up. It's about a 94-year-old lady that was legally blind that went through way more than I went through, and she survived it. At 94, she was a widow twice. And she ended up, her second husband ended up dying in a car crash in 1959. She is mobilizing and trying to do things. And I know about the elderly. If you have dogs, that's, you know, they're more than children. They're there. They're going to love you no matter what you do. Anyway, she had 3 Chihuahuas. And so she was doing okay. And in 2019, she sold her mobile home and moved with her daughter in Santa Paula. But then she began to lose her sight worse than she normally did, and her health had gotten really bad, and she leased a Subaru for her daughter so she could take her to her doctors and all that. But then all of a sudden, her daughter died, left her with nothing. I mean, she didn't know how to, she didn't know where to go, didn't know what she's going to do. You know, she went to the Camarillo Police Department and told her story. And they connected her with a thing called Gold Coast Veterans Foundation. They identified her as a widow of a veteran who was homeless, and they was able to help her. They got her into a home, and they got her into a place that she would be able to keep her dogs. And so she ended up, just like I say, she was legally blind, had 3 animals, and she ended up, and she calls these folks the angels of her life. But at 94 years old, she got a new lease on life. And so those of you that are 94 years old that are able to see, and those of you that are 94 years old and able to walk and get around, if you're just sitting there doing nothing, it's time you look up and look around and say, wow, I've got some life left. I have life left in here. I'm telling you, it's a it's a world now that is so hard to do material things. Uh, you're scared to death to be out, and when you become a recluse, uh, you begin to have health problems. So what it is, it really needs to be a time of just saying, hey, what do I have to lose? I need to live. That's what I finally discovered in my life. There come a time I said, well, you don't have control over whether you live or die. So it's your choice to either exist on a couch for the rest of your life and then die, or get up and do something. So what if you fail? So what if you're not able to do anything? Who cares? Because once you do pass on, all that's going to be history. The only difference between you and I is my history is going to be on YouTube. And I know that life is tough, but it also can be wonderful. You know, for you that have grandchildren, I'm not fortunate enough to be close to my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren. And for you to have a communication between yourself and your grandchildren, you need to put together, you need to compile what you went through in life. You need to take that first 10 years. You take that 10 years of so let's start at 18 or start at 21, whatever. You start at 20 years old and say, what did I do in my 20s? What did I do in my 40s? What did I do in my 60s? What did I do in my 80s, 90s, 2000? What did I do there, and what decisions did I make that were uplifting and prosperous? And what decisions did I make that made me not so prosperous and not gaining any wisdom, but getting into depression? That's what you need to transfer into the hearts of your grandchildren so that they will see it coming where you didn't see it coming. I never seen depression coming, and I was in it for probably 2 years. I never seen bad decisions coming, but I did them, and they come. And then you can always, at the end of that bad decision, look back. And because there's always, time is going to take care of that bad situation. But why let it be a waste? Why not begin to talk to your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, depending on your age? But you need to start compiling that together and having a conversation with your children. Senior moment. I had no idea that I would be doing this at any time. And very uncomfortable doing it right now. But I will get over that because this is what I want to do. But getting over it, I may do some stupid things, and I may say some dumb things. And I don't know whether it's good or bad, but the things I say now is people can go back and say, you said it because I see it. So what we need to do is start doing something that lifts up the people we have that's going to be when we leave. Your children, you know. And here's the thing. I call it the Heckle Jekyll, but it's actually based after Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, Dr. Jekyll was a nice guy. He created this second personality, Mr. Hyde, to do all his evil stuff. Well, you got to kill that guy. You got to get him out. Now, I want to tell you right now, when I was out there and I was doing things, I'm going to call it Heckle and Jekyll. No, Jekyll's the guy, the bad guy. But I told my wife here the other day, I said, man, I've been really blessed since I killed old Jekyll. Because what I would do, and when I was nice and wanted something, and man, I was just a perfect gentleman. But the next thing, maybe the next day or two, old Jekyll would show up. And I'd be grouchy old man and couldn't do nothing. I'd holler at my wife and just be angry. And you know anger controls you. You don't control it. Anger is absolutely the devil's tool. I've dealt with that all my life. I've been in a Heckle-Jekyll situation so much in my life because I'd be real nice for a while. Next thing you know, I'm over here just grumping and being a miserable old man and just being a terrible person. Hollering at people, doing things when things were going wrong. Well, see, not until a couple of years ago did I realize that Jekyll was showing up more in my life than Heckle. So I said, well, actually, to be very honest with you, it just killed him a couple of months ago. And since then, my wife has been very happy because I remind her every now and then, well, if Jekyll was alive, he wouldn't handle that stuff very good. But Jekyll's dead. I tell him I killed him. We need to have one personality because things that happen in this life, most of the time, the things that we get angry about, we can't change. Now, if we could change them by being angry, that would be one thing. But we cannot change anything being angry. And there's not a problem of being mad or angry now and then. It's just not being stupid behind it. You know, we all get mad and angry, but just don't turn into Jekyll. And I literally had a full-grown Jekyll in my life because my wife and I, we laugh about that a lot. Just matter of fact, a couple of days ago, we were talking about it. I said, man, I'm sure glad I killed old Jekyll. Because when I die, I don't want to have memories of, man, you know, he was all right when things was going good, but he was terrible when things were going bad. You didn't want to be around him. Now, I know that's describing probably about 50% of you out there. Stop it. Just quit being stupid and start being the person of compassion, the person of love, the person that cares about life, not just sliding through life, but cares about life. There's a Heckle and Jekyll in all of us. We either kill him or let him live. God bless. Wow. Okay. And we're back. Well, we've been rattling off pretty good about things of what elderly people do. I want to talk to you one more time about the book. Now, you need to read this book. It will keep you entertained. Because it was a life story from me when I was just in the craziest part of my life. The time I was 44 years old is when I turned my life around. This book is about the struggle that I had from being born into the dirt poor place called Okieville in Stockton, California, East Side. Now I struggled learning, and the people that I met and the things that I had to struggle through, they weren't the best kind of people in the world. I met a lot of good people, but I met a couple of people that ended me up going through what I went through with this book. I need for you to take a look at it. On herbkeener.com, you can go in there and read 20, 30 pages of it and determine whether you like it or not, or whether you're interested in it or not. It gives a place there that you'll be able to turn the pages of the book and read some of the stuff and read the intro and read the reason I wrote the book. So I'd ask you to go and look at that, because if at this day and time, like marijuana now is legal, and back in 84, it was not legal, and we were in a position of life, death. And by the grace of God, I ended up living. That's the name of the book, is Decision to Die, Strength to Live. I had made a decision that I was the worthless for everything, so I needed to die. But then I had the strength to live, and the book explains all that. Well, I want to talk about a lady that 104 years old. Her name was Audrey Roberts, and her last wish was to live into her home until she passed away. But things happened. She outlived her retirement fund, and she had to be moved into a home, into an elderly place home. Well, her mind began to deteriorate, her body began to deteriorate, and it just wasn't good. She started dealing with things in her life, health issues, and she was just having a heck of a problem. Now, there was a young man that knew her since he was 3 years old. Now, and he's probably 30, 40 at this time. He stepped up, went in, and done everything he could, and finally got her back into her home. And she immediately started getting better. She immediately started remembering things, and he's going on the GoFundMe place to get money for her to be able to live at home. The care workers, they all took a cut in pay so that they could afford to stay there with them and help her. Now, see, this is what life is about. This young man no longer looked at her like she's invisible. He looked at her like, wow, she needs help. That's what we need to start looking at. We don't need to start looking at, well, that's too bad, we'll see him later. No, this man did not accept that. He's seen the deterioration. He's seen what was going on. So he stepped up and done this. So her mentality started getting stronger, and it showed pictures of her and smiling and coming back to life. And this young man went out and done all he could do to get her back into her home. And this is what we need to be looking at. We need to know that we're doing something, because she was starting to get Alzheimer's and dementia, and her life just turned around when she found a young man. Like I say, he known her since he was 3 years old. He just couldn't bear the thought of her going out like that, because he knew her wishes, wanting to stay in her home. 104 years old. Who plans on living to be 104? Nobody. So she figured she'd be gone before everything run out, but her retirement run out. The way it was structured, she run out of money. But then we had this young man. His name is Evan Lapointe. And I'm going to tell you, I commend him. I lift him up. You know, that is something for him to step up. He probably had plenty of other things he needed to do or wanted to do, but he chose to do the right thing. I don't know of too many young people in their 30s and 40s. I know I wouldn't have back when I was in my 30s and 40s. I didn't even look in that direction. I couldn't even go visit a grandmother for my mother. So my point is that if we don't start looking around, when we get there, when you get there, I'm already there. When you get there, you be looking around, see who's going to help you, and then you'll remember that you didn't help anybody, so you didn't have anything coming. But see, change comes. Change comes easy. You know, they don't make stupid pills that'll cure that. Stupid can't be cured. It has to be changed. You know, I had a friend of mine one time, I told him, hey, we need to find a pill that cures stupid. You know how you figure out that? I said, man, if you could figure out a pill for cure stupid, man, we could make millions, billions. And so we talked about it, and I said, well, you know what? There's one thing about it is, if you put a bunch of aspirin in a little bottle and go tell them this cures stupid, and they get it and they put it in their mouth and they say, wow, that tastes like aspirin. I said, see, you're smarter already. So, you know, we think of things like that. But stupid has to be changed. It can't be healed. Stupid gets healed by knowledge, wisdom, caring for other people instead of just ourselves. We need to look around us, look at our loved ones, look at our friends. You know, I thought my mother was going to be forever. And she died 2 weeks after I got married. I mean, it was such a blow. But I never, ever gave the respect or the total compassion to her that she deserved. Now that bothers me, but I can't change it, so there's no sense of getting depressed over that. Because that's the first thing she wouldn't want, is for me to do that. So for those of you that still have your parents, for those of you that still have loved ones, you need to take another look. You need to find out what their favorite color is. You need to know who they are. And you need to let them know who you are. They probably don't have a clue what you went through unless they lived it with you. I mean, if I took my book to 90% of my relatives and they read it, they would have not a clue that any of this was going on in my life. Not a bit. Most of them wouldn't even know now that 37 years ago I turned my life around. But see, the only way anybody's going to know anything is if you tell them. You need to tell them while they got breath. You know, there's a thing that I created. It's called Last Word for Eternity. And I even got the .com on it, lastwordforeternity.com. And it's a program which I've never had the finances to put it together, but it's a program about making videos of yourself to a personal one-on-one with an individual, telling them either how wrong they treated them while you was alive, or this or that, or tell them how much you appreciated their love, and or whatever, is just telling them from the heart, and put that in the archives. And then when you pass away, the people taking care of your paperwork or whatever they do sends that to that individual. And that's why I call it the last word for eternity, because they're not going to come back and argue with you because you're going to be dead. So that can be done personally, one-on-one. And if you're not able, if you're like me, if you go start talking like that to somebody, they start asking stupid questions, and next thing you know, you're involved in a discussion, not giving them knowledge of who you are or what it is. You're in there trying to defend what you did and defend what you didn't do, why you wasn't there, So even if you're alive and they're alive, you can make a video that tells them, look, I need to understand this about you, and this is how it is about me. Now, and make a 15-minute video and get it to them. Now, me, I prefer to let them look at it after I'm gone. That way, like I say, lastwordforeternity.com. You can't, you don't have to listen to all the backlash. But, I don't want people at my funeral sitting out there. They didn't like me when I was alive, so why are they sitting out there in my funeral? And the reason I come across this is I was doing a funeral for a couple people, and I noticed the crowd, and I knew everybody. And I said, wow. On my way home, I told my wife, I said, my funeral is going to be by appointment only. I am not having them hypocrites come and sit out there in the audience while I'm laying there in a casket. They didn't even like me when I was alive. Why are they liking me when I'm dead? So that's how I come up with Last Word for Eternity. We'll see you in the next segment. God bless you. Wow. We're back. This is our final segment. Some of you be happy. Hopefully some of you be glad that you're here. But my thoughts to you today is we got Thanksgiving tomorrow, and we're going to see people that we really get along with and really care for. Then we're going to see people that we just soon see them go instead of coming. That's what Thanksgiving, Christmas does. It makes families get together, and if they don't like each other, that causes problems. So what I would ask you to do, before you go to wherever you're going, determine who you are. Determine what you want to get out of this time. Do you want to leave that place with them talking about you and saying, well, he's just as stupid as he was the last time, or would you want them to say, wow, I seen a change in him, man or woman, doesn't matter. There's no limitations on doing stupid things. Men do it and women do it. But the thing is, if we recognize who we are, don't be so overbearing. Don't have to be right all the time. You know, what's it worth to be right? Is it worth to lose a friend just to be right over a certain thing? No, it's definitely not. I can tell you that for sure. I've lost a lot of friends over trying to be right all the time. You can't be right all the time, and most of the time it doesn't matter whether you are or not. So before you go to your function, you need to determine in your heart, am I going to wreak destruction, or am I going to wreak in the compassion and love? Because, see, when it's over, you're going to be the same person. But your mentality, your attitude, that's what's going to determine how it went. Those that go with a bad attitude and just waiting for somebody to say something so they can pounce on it, that's going for the wrong reasons. You might as well stay home. But if you're going to look at a different view, if you're going to look at, wow, you know, I need to heal this thing. I need to take care of this thing. I need to be a different person. If you love who you are and you're satisfied with your loved ones, man, I got to commend you. And you just keep doing what you're doing. But I've been around a lot of people, and I know there is millions of people out there that would just soon fight as sit down to dinner with somebody. So if you're one of them angry ones, the ones that has no control over their anger, because you don't, because it controls you. All you got to do is think back at the times, the words that come out of your mouth when you was really angry, words that you would probably never say in public ever, but when you're angry, it just comes out like fluid. So anger is the downfall of healing relationships. It's understanding. It's being patient. You know, the one thing, temperance. Temperance is an important word, especially when we get older. Temperance is just being the same no matter what's going on. Being the same person, your same mentality, not going up and down like a heart monitor. It's just, temperance is just being the same person. And if you're having a discussion, the tone doesn't rise, it doesn't drop, it just is there. It's you. But see, temperance is taking everything in stride and in value of what's it worth to be right. You know, I had to deal with that in my marriage in the first 10 years. You kind of, you know, pretty soon I said, well, what would it be worth losing my wife to be right? Absolutely not. You know, when I was pastoring, I counseled. I done marriage counseling, and actually was pretty good at it, mainly because I'd learned all the bad things myself, and so I knew what to tell them. But the thing was, what I come out with the whole thing of marriage counseling is, quit trying to be right, and just try to do things together. And if one has a different opinion than the other, what's it worth to be right? It's not worth anything. So the deal for me is, I don't go to too many functions, Thanksgivings, Christmas. My wife and I kind of stay around too, Larry, and visit my pastor and that's where our Christmas and New Year's is, and we talk to family on the phone. But sometimes it's important to somebody to see you, and we don't realize that. It's really important to be at some for the right reason. But just to be there to win an argument or to start one, that's when you need to stay home. But when you're there to learn about one another and love one another, and when you leave there, you feel good. I tell you, I've got a grandson that's really doing well in this world, and I mean really well. And I'm just, but he's the same. He reaches out to the elderly. He loves it. And he doesn't look at me like he's looking through me. He's looking at me. And we have conversations. And he's a great young man. And those are the ones that you want to embrace. The ones that want to be angry and combative all the time. You know, I think on my first segment, first episode, I talked about that. Albert Einstein says those that are really intelligent, well, I'll start from the front. It says those that deal with these arguments and things, number one, is you get angry. Number two, the wise man, he forgives. But the most intelligent man ignores. There's what you got to put into your heart. Everything that comes out of somebody's mouth doesn't have to be important to you. Because what is important to you is what drives you. If you put that kind of stuff in your heart, you're going to end up being angrier than they are. So some things need to be ignored. I don't have that quote with me exactly, but I know the very top one was the intelligent people ignore. Smart people, they forgive, but the intelligent people ignore. Forgiving somebody for something is one thing. But sometimes once you forgive them, you got to get away from them. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it again. What I'm saying, let this Thanksgiving that's coming up tomorrow, let it be the best one you ever had. Because if you were the one that starts all the arguments and all the things, and you're the one that's always got to be right, just don't be that person this time. Be compassionate. Let go. Ignore remarks. And I promise you, you'll make a greater impact that way than if you do the same thing you've always done. You're the one that started all the stuff, and when you leave, they say, wow, he done it again. If you change and do a 360 on these people, and you ignore the words, and the words that come out of your mouth is not of anger, not combative, but just conversation. Interested in who they are and what they do. I promise you, not only will you feel better, you'll change some hearts. That's another thing that earlier in the episodes, I don't remember which one, it talks about the change in a person. How many people, you need to count how many people you think is watching you. How many children do you think are watching you for what you do? Then how many teenagers are watching you and looking for what you're going to do next? And how do you think you could have an impact on their life? I don't care if you're 20 years old, and I don't care if you're 105. somebody's looking at you to see just exactly what they need to do. And what you deliver may get into their soul, and they'll become you. Now, you need to look at yourself and say, well, I'm okay. I'm a great person. I'm doing good. Well, then that's great. You need them to want to be like you. But you need to determine, are you the good one? Are you the bad one? If you're the bad one, do you want them to be like you? Because you are on display, my friend. No matter what you say, people have loyalty to their mothers and fathers and stuff like that. But see, some people they idolize. Some people, because they're not under the restriction of the parental control. They may be looking at you as an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, sister, brother, whatever. You're on display. So this Thanksgiving, give thanks for the power to be the person that you were supposed to be when you were born. Be that person that knows about love, knows about compassion. I don't care what's happened in your past. That doesn't have anything to do with your future. Because if you cut your past loose, you're going to have a great future. It's been a great time, and you be blessed in all that you do. God bless.
JKH Career Coaching and Consulting, creating solutions in career planning, development, training, and placement. Contact Jackie Kennedy Harris at JKH Career Coaching and Consulting at jkhccc.com or call 559-307-7712.